Hi guys, it's John back again with another model in box review. Today we're looking at an aircraft which is not very well known, probably by anyone in the modelling community outside of Sweden. We're looking at Saab's J-32 Lansen multi-role combat fighter. I liken this aircraft quite a lot to the British Hunter, although it is quite a bit larger than the Hunter. It's more like the size of a Tornado jet. And it is a two-seat aircraft. So we'll go on with the boxing history. The kit I'm actually working on today is going to be the Hella release of the Saab J-32 Lansen. The Lansen was a Swedish multi-role aircraft, and it came in three various guises. One was a sort of a multi-role general-purpose fighter for use in air defence. There was another variant which was used as a photo reconnaissance, and there was another variant which was used as a counter-electronic warfare aircraft. And it also offered counter-electronic signals for strike packages to make them less susceptible to surface-to-air missiles. So it was sort of an early Wild Weasel type aircraft, if you like. But its general purpose guise also covered a lot of tactical strike as well as air defence. So this is the 1982 release boxing of the Lansen. It was the original boxing. And Hella produced all their boxings at this era with a black border with the little yellow Hella symbol here with a French tricolour. These were the early renditions, and the Saab Lansen was released, as I said, in 1982. The second rendition came out in 1990, the same box artwork on the front, but they made the actual name of the kit a lot smaller across the top there, and they changed it from J32 to A and S32. This is because you can build the A or the S variant from the kit, and although the A and the S variant I'll talk to you about the parts available in the kit, because there's something missing from from the kit that is visible clearly in this picture. They also put a large Hella logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the box there. So that was a 1990 offering. Then in 1996 they revised their boxings again, and they changed the front image of the Lansen's picture on the front to this green camo pattern. Again, it's the same kit offering in the box, but there is new decals for this kit, obviously, because the original one, you'll see the decals in a minute, but there's an F fin flash on the fin, and there's other badges which are available in this offering's decals that aren't available in the early offering's decals. So that's 1996, and again, it's released as a brand new release. It certainly isn't. The kit is 30-odd year old now, 36-year-old, I think, nearly. And it's the same old kit as they released in 1996, which is quite interesting. Again, they use the same box art on the front, and this kit is readily available in their new boxings. This is the artwork on the front of the box, but the kit itself, I think the box artwork is basically red and white, isn't it? From what I remember of their new release and boxings that they've got now. But this is an advert for the new release, and I think it's going to be released, if not already, it will be sometime this year. So that's the Hella offering of the J-32 and AS-32 Lansen fighters. Now then, I want to talk about the offerings that you can get in other companies, because there aren't very many, but what there is out there is very, very good. First of all, it's only available in two scales. That's 1/72 and 1/48. And the Hella kit was, for an awful long time, the only model available of the Lansen, full stop. You couldn't get it in any other scale from any other company. But then, a company called Tarangus started releasing this kit in 1/72 scale. Now, I haven't seen the sprues, but guessing on what a lot of the pro modeler reviews are going on about, this kit is very dear, but it's incredibly good. So I'm guessing it's not the same sprue, it's not just a rebox of the original Hella kit. and Tarangas do this kit in 48th as well, which apparently is the kit to buy as long as you can afford it. So this kit is available by Tarangas in 72nd scale, and in 48th it's available by Hobby Boss as a J-32B or E Lansen. These are the later variants that served the Swedish Air Force right up until about 1980. I think they were relinquished from service in 1984, 86, something like that, and they were replaced fully by the electronic warfare and tactical strike variants of the Draken and Viggen as stopgaps for when the Gripen became fully available. So that's the Hobby Boss variant in 48 scale. You can also get the Tarangas model in 48 scale as well, and apparently this is the kit everyone's talking about in the professional realm. The Tarangas kit is probably the best model of the Lansen you can get in any scale, full stop, but it is dear, as you'll see later in the caption. So I'll leave you the lovely picture of a Lansen. This gives you more of an idea of what the aircraft looks like. It's quite a nice looking plane. It's typically Swedish, being stubby, and it's quite a fat thing in terms of its shape overall. But it is quite reminiscent of the Hunter in many respects, even though it's a low wing and not a mid wing. And the engine is obviously the same as the Hunter. It's just a Volvo Flig motor licensed production version of the Rolls-Royce Avon RDA Mark 7, but it's fitted with reheat. So what I'll do now is I'll just pan the camera over to the box I've got on the table, and then we can have a look and see what we've actually got. So let's just pan this around. There's, oops. Can I pan it around a little bit more for you guys? There we go. And then I'll try and reach it back to give you a bit of scope on the yeah, it's not having it, is it? This mount isn't very good. I'll have to try and invest in something a bit better than this. Right, nearly there. Sorry about this. Right, so this is the kit in question, the Hella J-32 Lansen. This is the 82 edition, the original release. I still need to adjust this camera. This camera is not very good up there. It's still not very good up there. Is that better? That's a bit better, isn't it? We'll open the box, like we normally do. Have a look at what we've got inside. You've got some gumph here. General modelling advice. So this is like a health and safety sheet with all the keys on it, which is something Hella did in the 80s. They put a separate sheet on to give you all the keys for what you do during the construction. And there's the same information in different languages there. That's general modelling advice in English there on the right hand side. And then you've got all the paint colours, which is quite nice. So that's a separate sheet you get. Not sure how helpful it is to, you have to keep swapping and chopping and changing. Instruction leaflet. What I'll do, I'll turn the box lid upside down, and then I'll put all of this stuff in here, and we'll have a look at the sprues. I'm not going to go into great detail into the sprues, because the sprues are pretty much a muchness for a kit of this age, but I will go into the usual stuff that I usually go into. Right, instructions. The instructions on this kit are quite large. And on the back of the instruction sheet you've got your colour plan, and it's huge. The colour plan is massive. It's so big I can't even get it all into the shot for you. But that's your two variants there. You've got the green camo with light grey underside, and there's a silver aircraft with a blue tail fin and quite a lot of day-glow orange all over the airframe. The nose cone itself is day-glow orange. I think there's some patches here and there on the aircraft that are day-glow orange, but the fin itself is blue. Also, a lot of aircraft that the Swedish Air Force used in the green camo pattern also had day-glow orange patches over a lot of the airframe in some of the variants that were used, which makes for quite a colourful aircraft. The instructions on the front you've got, I'll just show you this very quickly, you've got the top left hand corner, you've got the logo and the aircraft subject name, and there's the history and data on the aircraft in various different languages. There's the English version of it there. And then you've got the kit that builds up in 7 steps. There aren't a huge number of parts in this kit. I think there's about 60 odd. So the kit, again, will be one of these models that will build up quite rapidly. But the thing that's interesting about this model is that both variants on the box artwork carry a bulbous bulge underneath the fuselage, which I think is an optional fitment on the real aircraft, because I'm looking at this photograph on the computer I've got here of the Lansen in flight, and there is an attachment point on the underside of the airframe between the wings for the bulbous attachment, but it's not fitted on the photo, so I think it's an optional thing. So if you wanted to build one of those, you would have to scratch build one. But there are alternative parts for the 2 different variants, because one of these, as I said, is a dedicated photo reconnaissance aircraft, an electronic counter-electronic warfare plane, and the other one is more of a general purpose tactical strike and ADV plane. So it's a tandem 2-seat aircraft. So in section 1 you build your interior and the bathtub there with the 2 seats and the 2 instrument panels. The aircraft appears to be only a single sticker, with the forward section of the cockpit only getting the joystick. So the rear seat must be for the WSO, which is common with most Western aircraft. Not sure about the Russian planes, but it's probably the same with those. Section 2 and 3 are the main undercarriage oleos, port and starboard, and in section 4 you've got the fuselage assembly, which you can see there. There's a little bit of nose required to add to, a little bit of weight required to add to the nose there to make sure the plane sits on its tail wheel. You'll be seeing a couple of final reveals soon where I've had nightmares with tail sitters that shouldn't have been, and I don't understand why they are, but you'll see later. They'll be coming up soon. So the bathtub fits into the fuselage. You've got a couple of splitters there that go into the air intakes, and then there's a 2-piece jet pipe that fits at the back of the fuselage there. You can see that, and that has to be fitted into a particular place, and there is a locating pin on the lower half of the jet pipe there to make sure that you fit it in the correct place. Section 5 is an alternative parts section where you get a solid plastic nose or a transparency nose, and the reason for that is because one is photo reconnaissance and you'll have to paint around the camera ports, and the other is a solid nose containing a gun pack. Section 6 is the airframe assembly, which you'll see here. I'm trying to get it all in focus for you. It states to fit the canopy over the top in this stage, but I never fit canopies until the aircraft's airframe is painted, because I like to paint my canopies separate. I might do a video on how I paint canopies, because it might be interesting for a lot of modelers who have issues with painting canopies, because I find that my method is you get better results if you're freehand painting, and it's of no use whatsoever, of course, if you use masks. But for freehand painting of canopy frames, I find my method quite useful. Section 7 is to fit the main undercarriage and all the doors into place. I think there's a couple of lights on the forward doors there, and then the nose wheel goes in place there as well. You can, of course, have the undercarriage fitted in the raised position if you wish, and if you did that, of course, you wouldn't need the nose and the nose weight in the nose cone. So that's the instructions. They're quite easy to follow. There's not too many parts there, and it doesn't look like a complicated build. Now then, bearing in mind that this is a 1982 release of this kit, this is one of the early kits that they released. The decals don't look too bad for 1982, do they? You've got your common to both Swedish roundels, and then you've got your separate options for decals there in the middle. And this decal sheet is a little bit discoloured, but I think it's only the backing paper that's actually discoloured. The decals themselves look okay, which I'm quite happy about. It would have been a bit of a shame if they weren't. But the decals themselves, they look like they're in pretty good register. They don't look like there's any problems with them. The backing film, I'm looking, and there doesn't appear to be an awful lot of backing film at all on any of them. The 17 and the A, I think, are one. No, they're not. They're actually separate decals, which is quite nice. And if you do find that you have issues with backing film, you can always cut them close to the decal itself so that you don't see them so much. And I do that quite a lot with some of my decals here and there. But that decal sheet looks quite nice. There's not too many decals on there, so that the decaling of this kit is not going to be a stenciling nightmare. Right, transparencies. We'll deal with the canopy first, because the canopy is quite nice on this kit. Bearing in mind that this is 1982, and canopies in those days weren't great. And I have an issue with this canopy. I'm looking at it straight away. And if I can show you it, I'm hoping that goes into focus so you can see it. I don't think it's going. Yes, it is. Can you see the blemish on the corner? Sorry, on the lower rail there for the canopy. It's actually where the canopy is broken away from the sprue and it's caused a pressure mark. And I'm not going to be able to get rid of that at all. I'm going to be able to paint over half of it, but not all of it, and that is going to show, which is a shame, because the rest of the canopy is beautiful. It's really clear. The frame on the front is nice. It's crystal clear. It's gorgeous. It's a really, really nice transparency part. You can't really see my fingerprints through that, but it is quite heavily curved. The curvature on that is quite heavy, and I wouldn't expect to see fingerprints, but it is a lovely crystal clear canopy. Very pleased with that indeed. The rest of the parts on this sprue, one of them is an optional position part for the lower ventral nose section of the fuselage, and this carries all the camera ports. I hope you can just see them there. The camera ports, they're sort of frosted, but they are visible and they will paint quite nicely. I have seen a review of one person who actually put little tiny cameras behind those camera ports, and his kit looked absolutely fantastic, but it was an IPMS entry into his local IPMS competition for an annual competition. I don't think it won, but it certainly was in the top 5, and it turned out lovely. That is very heavily frosted, and you've got another section there, another part there which goes in between the two pilot seats on the inside of the canopy, and then you've got your 2 lights that fit over the doors of the nose wheel there. So that's, in my opinion, it's quite a nice transparency sprue. Quite impressed with that. Now then, the parts. The parts are interesting, and when I was looking at these earlier, I was thinking, yeah, they're really intricately moulded, and they really are. They're quite intricately moulded. The small parts on this frame are quite nice. Let's take this out of the way so you can see a bit better. The small parts on this frame are actually quite nicely moulded. There's not a lot of flash. I wouldn't expect there to be a lot of flash, seeing it's the first year of release. I think this kit was actually a 1982 release in the first box. I don't know how long that ran for, because I don't know how long the kit was actually in production for in its first rendition. But the parts on this kit are actually nicely moulded. There's a few abnormalities in the plastic, but nothing that paint won't cover. The undercarriage wells look okay. They look quite fine. And there's something that's quite interesting about this. Yes, you've got raised panel lines, and I'm hoping the camera can pick them out, because the panel lines are really faint. And if you wanted to sand them down and rescribe them, they would come away from that part very quickly. So you'd probably have to rescribe before you sanded the raised panel line down. And again, you've got a raised panel line on the tail plane there. And they're really lovely produced parts. I really like what Hella have done with these parts. They're nice. There's the joystick there. You can see. Can you see the joystick there? Hoping it's going to come into focus for you. That's a nicely moulded part as well. It's not going to come into focus, is it? Oh yes, it is. There we go. Nicely moulded part. Very, very impressed with that. Now then, the upper wings, and you've got the solid nose cone here, which incorporates the gun ports. There's the bathtub for the cockpit canopy. Again, that's quite nice. There's a few dials and bits and bobs to pick out with paint there. The nose wheel is nicely moulded actually. That's a nice piece of work too. Very impressed with that too. The main undercarriage oleos, I'll turn the sprue over so you can see them better. They're quite nicely moulded as well. Can you see those? Very nice piece of work from Hella. Hella kits, they had a bit of a reputation for being, if you like, the poor man's version of Airfix. I think that was a bit harsh. A lot of people said that they weren't as good as Airfix kits. Some of their kits that were howlers weren't certainly as good as Airfix kits, but some of the other models that they produced, and this one not being an exception at all, were actually quite nice. Yeah, very impressed. The detail on the instrument panels there, I don't know if you, I hope you can see them, I hope they'll come out. But you can see there's dials on them which you'll be able to pick out with paint, and they're quite nicely finished as well. I like what Hella have done. The seats are, they're not much to write home about, are they? They're just ordinary seats that you get in a 72nd scale 80s rendition of a jet fighter, I suppose. But you could super detail them quite easily. This sprue here is the main sprue for the fuselage halves, but they've been taken off for test fitting purposes, so I'll show you those separately. But basically that's a jet pipe. Most of that, of course, is going to be invisible, but that's the bit that sticks out at the back of the jet orifice, if you like. And then you've got the main undercarriage wheels. The detail on those isn't too bad either. So you can see that they're not too bad, are they? I quite like the moulding quality on the Hella kit. Now then, I'm going to show you one of these fuselage halves because I don't think you need to see both of them. They're pretty much mirror images of each other. But I do want to show you something which I found was interesting with this kit. You've got quite a lot of raised panel lines, but they're very faint. As I said before, they are very faint. There's no cockpit detail on the interior for the side panels, so you could super detail that if you wanted to. But, and here's the shocker, there's a combination of raised and recessed panel lines on this airframe. Now, I've never seen this on a kit of an 80s rendition kit. I've never seen it unless it's in a higher scale. If it was, say, 32nd scale, you might sometimes get this, but in 72nd, you've got a raised panel line here for the ribs and the members that join, you know, that sit underneath the skin of the airframe, and then you've got a recessed panel line, and I don't even know what that is. It must be an access panel of some sort, and then you've got some vents, and I'm hoping that will come into focus there a little bit better. Will it come into focus? But you've got some vents on the side of there, which are obviously breathing vents for the engine, and then you've got another one there for the tailplane, and again, I'm not sure what that is. It might be a guide for the tailplane angle or something of that nature, I'm not sure. But that is basically the parts for this kit. I'll put the lid on the parts there, put the box away, and then I'm going to go through quickly the gumph so that we can close this video down. I don't want this video to be too long. Right, the gumph. Hella have produced this kit as a Saab J-32 Lansen, and they've produced this kit in several boxing renditions, but it's basically a J-32 or an A or S-32 or a JAS-32 Lansen kit as it's been released. The Hella model is in 1/72nd scale, and its serial number is 343, and the dimensions of the kit are 8 inches long by 7.25 inches span by 2.5 inches high on its undercarriage. The kit comprises 47 parts on 3 grey silver plastic sprues and 5 parts on 1 clear plastic sprue, totalling 52 parts in total. The decals cover 2 versions, one for an A-32A Lansen of Flig Flottilge 17, based in 1960, and an S-32C Lansen of Flig Flottilge 11, based in 1960. The options and costs, the 72nd scale options, the Hella kit costs around about £10 to £15. The Tarangus kit costs between £30 and £35. And the 48 scale offerings, the Hobby Boss model costs about £20 to £48, depending on how greedy the person is. And the Tarangus kit is a staggering 49 to 65 quid. Conclusions. Well, never having built this kit before, I have no idea of any fit issues or inaccuracy features. However, there are a mix of recessed and mostly raised panel lines which make the prospect of an interesting finish. The Hella kit is definitely the cheapest option available and looks not too challenging a build, And the box art and views of the decal options on the side of the box clearly show the bulbous attachment under the fuselage, which is nowhere to be seen in the model whatsoever. Can you see the bulbous attachments there? They're on both versions, but that part is nowhere in the kit whatsoever, and I always thought that was a bit unusual. There's a lack of pilots, which could be an issue for some people, although the interior is quite detailed for an 80s release kit. Unusual subject covered by Hella, but I would say not a bad effort and would suit a modeller looking for something a little different to build and put into his collection. So that's the model overall. The in-box review is finished. I hope this video has been of some use to you, and I'll see you for the next one soon, lads. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.